I really hope so.
Yes,
Well,
we are.
okay. Hello, everyone. This is Eduardo Duran. Welcome to Playing with Forms. This is a space where we have stories, experiences, and tools that help us experience life from a different perspective and to discover who we really are. And I'm here with Adriana. As always, Adriana, how are you?
Hey, hello. How are you, Eduardo? Welcome, everybody, to our weekly space of playing with forms. This beautiful space where we have the opportunity to chat, to talk about all the topics and the knowledge that the higher dimensional beings share with us through their communication with Eduardo, and Eduardo, of course, channels and transcribes all this information into his books, also called Playing with Forms. You can find the link to buy the books in the description of this transmission. So don't forget to buy your first book at least. It's a collection of 4 books, with plenty of information and tools. So go ahead and don't forget to subscribe to our channel, to activate the bell, leave your questions, and that we kind of choose the topic we're going to talk about on the next transmissions. So, of course, you can leave also your hearts and likes, would be very nice, and share with your friends. Today's topic, it has to do with one comment that one person in the audience left, related to the our thoughts and the addictions and the role that our mind plays in the addictions. So I would like to start, Eduardo, by mentioning that in general there are 2 big groups of addictions. The first one has to do with you know an external uh, substance or for drugs, addiction for alcohol, etc. The second one that I find a little more complex is the emotional addiction that is officially called psychological addiction. And this one begins with the need to break out of a framework of thought or emotion, being inadequate or being sad or being
Uh,
escape isn't that, you know, all statistically,
I think you're cutting off a little bit. I don't know if it's my internet or your internet, but um, I see you a little bit slow, but I don't know if that's just my internet. I think we lost you, or I'm not able to see you. Anyway, think I think this is going on. Should I just keep going? Can you hear me, Adriana?
Back?
Yeah, you're back. Yes, you are.
Am
Yes,
I back?
you're back finally.
Oh my gosh. Yeah, I was telling you something is really weird. Okay, but I'm back. Okay, so I was saying that worry, stress, and anxiety leads us to patterns or to conducts that are related to addictions. So basically, what I'm trying to say is, or I'm trying to, just to ample the context of this, how the patterns or the beliefs, the profound beliefs, has to do with anxiety. I mean, with with anxiety, addictions, and in your experience and during your training with the higher dimensional beings, what did you learn? What is like the first step, not to avoid, but in case you have an addiction, what would be like the first step to take into account to recover your ability to make your own decisions?
Right.
What would you say, Ella?
Well, from the point of view from the higher dimensional being, there is nothing as there is no external things. Everything comes from the internal world. So everything is happening for us internally, and whatever we think is there externally is actually not happening. It's just built inside, as we call it, forms. So when it comes to addiction, they basically see addictions as lack of will to consciously do or not to do certain actions. For example, if we're talking about addiction, like the typical addiction, like the most common one is alcohol, or but there are many others like even like porn, food, eating a lot of food, or the also there's something that is very common lately. It's the spending a lot of time out of control on internet watching videos, because this is also an addiction that we are not aware of. But basically, an addiction is anything that it's making us have to do something out of control, and we are not aware of it as a problem. So because we will, if we will be aware of it, we will probably not do it, or we will choose something differently. The thing is that everything we do is a decision. The only problem is like every decision we are doing is unconsciously in most cases. That's why we are often talk about being conscious of your actions, of what's going on internally. Internally meaning your thoughts and emotions, because there are some things that it can affect, because we are biological beings. So of course there is food and such a things like Coca-Cola that affect us biologically, and therefore it affects the way we interact with our reality. And
Yeah.
but besides that, everything is internally. It's a decision. It is related to the will that we have about doing certain things or not to do certain things. At the end, it's always a decision, but in most cases that decision is unconscious. Therefore we believe that it's very easy for us to blame external things to us, to just to say like, hey, I have a need for this, but it's not a need. It's at the end it's a decision. It's just that we can easily blame external things for us to remove the responsibility from us, but at the end it's our responsibility all the time. It's just that it's
Yeah.
very easy just to point fingers to external things and say, I am not doing it. It's not my responsibility. That thing is doing it to me. And I'm not powerful enough to have will and do responsible for my actions. So that's pretty much what is happening in all cases, and not only with
Yeah.
addictions, but pretty much with everything.
Eduardo, yeah, I listen to you and I kind of think about when I was young because I'm not very addictive, but I used to smoke. I started smoking when I was 13. Oh my God, that's sad, but that happened. And specifically, I remember that no one at my house used to smoke, but I chose to smoke because I really wanted to be part of that popular group of girls who used to smoke. So I decided to smoke. And I smoked for like almost 20 years. I don't smoke anymore. And I quit from one day to another. I'm very proud of it. But going back to that moment, as a young kid, who is not conscious on the seconds effects, the consequences of anything. um of course my mom was all the time telling us, don't smoke, it's bad for you, but I was not aware of this feeling of losing my capacity to really decide on what I wanted to do. Really, you know what I mean? It's like I I how do I say it? I quit to my right to be sovereign on my decisions, and that is very common at young age. Nowadays, it is incredibly kind of normal that kids are just addicted to media, addicted to television, addicted to Coca Cola, addicted, and so on and so on and so on. So, in your experience and taking into account what you learned from the higher dimensional beings, what would be your, I don't know, the strongest uh, advice, or for parents, for example? I know you don't have kids, but what would you say? I mean, what would be like the most important thing to consider in all this topic, Eduardo?
Right. So again, we're coming back to the internal thing, observing ourselves internally. And there's an important topic that you were mentioning. In many cases, as a kid and also as an adult, we have this tendency because we are beings who want to, we are in groups all the time. So we want to belong to the group. So as kids, we
Yeah.
want to be part of a group to feel accepted. And in many cases, also as an adult, but in most cases, usually we're more conscious about it. But when we want to be part of us, we want to feel like we belong somewhere. In most cases, sometimes we are able to do things that we are not willing to do, but we decided to do at the end because we want to be part of that group. So we just want to belong
Yeah.
somewhere. And I think being conscious of what you're doing is going to make a huge difference on our actions. For example, in the case of your daughter, as you said, I don't have kids, so I don't know the best advices for parents how to tell their kids. But if we try to help our kids to be aware of their actions, I think that's going to make them see for themselves what kind of things they are doing, and they consciously can decide if they actually want to do it or not. For example, I think one of the examples that I like to say is that let's imagine that we have two cases here. So one of the cases is that we're going to a supermarket and we're paying attention to everything that is going on in around us. Like we can see the prices, the products, we can see the people selling the products, we can see what they are telling us. Because in some cases they can be telling us a lot of things just for because they want to be nice to us to sell the product. And
Mm,
also we are
yeah.
aware of what's going on inside us, how we feel about the product, how we feel about talking to people. So we're aware of the surroundings, but also we are aware of ourselves, what kind of thoughts are happening in our mind, what kind of emotions we're experiencing in the moment, in the place. Now, that's one
Yeah.
case. Another case will be when we're in the market, in the same market, but we're not paying attention. We're just looking around not paying attention to ourselves, not paying attention to the product. And people around us, they are paying attention, so they want to sell the product. And at the end, we can actually start buying things that we didn't want, and we might not even realize that it could be a dangerous place just because we're not paying attention. So the big difference here is that when we start paying attention, not only to the external things, but most importantly to the internal, how we feel emotionally, what kind of thoughts are happening inside us, then that's gonna make us to be conscious of what kind of situation we're living. So in the case of any person who wants to be part of any group, belong somewhere, as long as they are aware, they are really paying attention to themselves internally and also what is going on around them, then they can make a conscious
Oof.
decision what they want to do. Because as I said, many times we feel like we want to belong and it's something internal. But the moment we start noticing that we are doing things just because we want to belong, then we will notice and then consciously we can decide if it's worth it or not. But if we don't see it, which is in most cases,
Mm.
we're going to make unconscious decisions, which is something that we ended up doing, and then we might regret or we might never see it actually. Maybe we tried to belong somewhere when we were kids, and we still have it right now because we haven't been still not being aware of that decision that we made, and we're still just repeating the same things and we don't even know why. So being conscious, being
Wow.
aware of the decisions of what's going on inside is going to make us see things better, and that will help us to see and make decisions totally different. That's not something that nobody has to tell us what to do by ourselves,
Yeah.
just by looking at things differently. We're going to
Wow.
start making decisions differently because we see things from a different perspective.
Eduardo, but I'm gonna say something. Oops. I don't know, but we learn to be that way since we are kids. Because we go to school and we just say yes to everybody. And we are told to do this, we are told to be that, and we say yes. So it's like we lose the ability of saying no, of determine our boundaries. It's scary because I was like that as a mom. For me, a good kid was the one who never had any problem with any teacher because they used to say yes to everything. So it's a thing that I just came up with that. I mean, because I remember, I don't know. So we have to relearn as an adults, and we have to relearn, or as young moms and young dads, to let the children decide. We are very immature as an adult to say yes or say no. We are inside of a big system pushing us to do things, so it is not very easy. You know what I mean? It's something that, I mean, it's really complicated, but you are absolutely right. I just saw it clearly. What I need, I'm going to talk about myself, because I think that's the only chance that I have to take care of myself. And I'm going to be the example for my kids. So every time I see myself making decisions because of the external thing, it's an alarm. It's like, oops. So consciousness for me would be coherence,
Mhm.
being connected to who really I am, to my yes and my no's, but internals. Do you know what I mean? I mean,
Yep.
I just got to this like deep and dark area of myself where I surrender to society, to what everybody does, blah blah blah. And sometimes when I am in I have my social media, my pages and whatever, and whenever I am there doing, you know like, I don't know, it has a special name. My kids know better, but I'm just there looking at Instagram or whatever. There's a little voice in my head saying, "Stop it, do something better, quit." I'm just there. It's something like, controls myself. So, but that little voice is super wise, and then that voice is my will. So I have the ability to recover my free will and to be stronger and to live in this coherence. Coherence is a beautiful word that has a lot of positive consequences for human beings. I mean, I talk too much because I just got it. I just saw it perfectly, Eduardo, what you're saying. What do you think about that?
Well, yeah. Well, it's important for us to be aware that it's always the will what is making the difference between
Yeah.
something we wanna. Because the addiction is something that is we are doing unconsciously, repetitively, and it's just happening over and over, and we are not even aware of it. Therefore, we are still doing it. It's like when
Yeah.
we're on the phone. I mean, many people are addicted to the phone. They just don't realize, and actually, social media like TikTok and other things like adapting to these type of behaviors, so that's why it's addictive to them because they know how they think. So they are not, they are just
Absolutely.
moving to the next one, next one, next. So the attention is really not staying there for a long time. They just want the next thing, like moving, next,
20
next.
seconds. Yeah.
Yes, exactly. So, um, so being, that's why when there's a person, like the most common addiction is alcohol. And when they're trying to actually get some help, it's they're trying to get help by first acknowledging the problem. So when they're acknowledging the problem, that's one of the first things that they are trying to do is to acknowledge the problem. So it's the first thing we also what is that? Acknowledging the problem is basically being aware of it. We cannot change a habit if
Mhm.
we're not aware of that habit. So when we're talking about habits, it's also when they're advising people who are having problem with alcohol, usually they tell them to find a hobby to keep the mind busy with other things, so they are not overthinking or they are not thinking about this thing often. Because many times they are just overthinking. Therefore, when we're overthinking, thinking too much is not allowing us to be aware of ourselves. There's a big difference when we're alone at home, quiet,
Yeah.
and when there's a lot of noise and we are thinking. It's the same. Thinking a lot or having a lot of noise in our lives is very much the same. So when we're overthinking, it's really hard for us to stay focused. That's why this kind of hobbies is helping people to stay away from certain habits that are not healthy for them. But this is something that has been happening in humanity for a really long time. So we can even talk about, like I was mentioning in the Spanish version, that even the Bible talks about certain things. So this is really a problem that has been in humanity for many years, and we're talking about the the main problems that the Bible is talking about is that is about pride, having a lot of things, anger, lust, like sexual desire, and also the this addiction to.
The capital sins. The capital
Yes.
sins.
So,
Right?
so we're talking about sins, but we're not talking about external things. We're talking about really internal things, like the sins. What
Yeah.
is a sin? I mean, we might look at them as something external, but at the end, it's something internal. It's just that, for example, when we are talking about the pride, pride is something that is internal. It has nothing to do with something external to us. So it's taking care of our ego, taking care of being aware that we are equals to others. There is no, if we're trying to be better than others just because of the sake of trying to be better, then there's a problem in us, not problem in someone external to us. Or when we're trying to collect a lot of things for no reason, then there is something in us that is not okay, and therefore we have to take care of it. But it's easier for us to say that there's a need for us to collect things, but when in fact is there's no need. It's a decision. It's just probably a very unconscious decision. But the moment we make it conscious, we'll probably realize that it's not something we want to do. And the same with lust. Lust, when I'm talking about the sexual desire. So what is it? Sex at the end is something in the mind. So because we can, like in the dreams, you can have um, liquid dreams, just by with the thoughts. It's not, you're not doing anything physical.
Yeah.
So this scene, we're talking about anger. Anger is something when we're aware that we are experiencing anger, then we're gonna be able to decide consciously we want to continue having that anger or not. So that's gonna change completely the way we interact with others just by being aware of what kind of emotions we're experiencing based on the thoughts that we are creating, based on the form that we are creating. So just by looking at internally, I know that I talk often about this, but it's just by observing ourselves internally that's gonna make us change
Exactly.
um, decisions differently, because it's very easy for us to say that yes, I'm looking at my thoughts all the time, but it's not really happening. It really requires some time, and we have to be really honest with ourselves, otherwise we might not be able to actually do it. And there are some, for example,
So
we're
yeah,
talking about
go ahead.
laziness. What is laziness?
Hmm.
So being lazy, it's very easy for us to say that we are tired physically, but in many cases being lazy, it's I mean, in all cases, it's just the mind. I mean, we can be physically tired, but it's very common for us to say that I'm tired of something. But it's in most cases, if it's not something physical that we can actually be physically tired, it's something mental that it's
Hmm.
just that we're not motivated. For example, it's not the same. It's not the same when we wake up at 7 a.m. in the morning when we are going to work, and when we're waking up at 7 in the morning when we're going for holidays. So there's a big difference. It's about motivation. And and anyway, we can change the habit just by doing the same thing for 21 days. That's something that psychologists and also the higher dimensional beings talk about it.
What I perceive in your words, like, if I want it, I can do it.
Yeah, the
So
will. I
it's
mean,
just
having
a
the will.
matter, exactly, having the will. If I really want to get something, I will be able to do it. So we just require to identify that. And I don't know, also I have realized that we have been manipulated in so many ways to just obey, you know um like social, um how is in English, the status quo of the social, being socially, a good person or whatever. We just have to obey, and we rarely ask ourselves, or I rarely, I'm going to talk about myself, um, ask myself if I agree with this or I agree with that. Even with my husband, sometimes I have to go with him to certain places that I don't really want to go, and I just go because I'm a good wife and I have to go. You know what I mean? So we are like kind of trained to obey and to do what we are supposed to do, and in that space we lost the ability to really have a free will and a strong will that I think it's uh it's like the core in all these idea of addictions, right? So it is very interesting, Eduardo, and I think that point of view and that angle where you talk about is really interesting, and brings hope, because we are absolutely capable of not only quitting addictions, but making decisions in coherence on of what we really want to be, right? And that's fabulous, and it's always going back to observing our thoughts. And we just have to keep trying and keep practicing ability to observe our thoughts. I think there is the hidden power. Observe, to be that honestly. I mean, to be honest is a very good point of this. So, well, we approach the time to say goodbye to finish this transmission, Eduardo.
Yeah, I mean, I think I want to mention a small exercise that I used to do in the past. I don't need it anymore because I have been doing something like this every day for many years, so I'm used to it. So it's something that eventually you start doing automatically. But some of the things that I started doing at the very beginning when I started to talk with the higher dimensional beings was an exercise that I used to do when, in order for me to observe what's happening inside me and to, because some of the most common thing that we have right now is about entertainment and we don't realize. So something that I was doing long time ago, because now I'm very aware of it, it's um I was having some little rocks or even beans or something, whatever it's small. So I was putting on one side of the table, and then I was watching a show, any show, but it can be something calm, could be a meditation, or anything that is calm. So I was just looking at it, and whatever is in the image in the video, I was just observing that image, and then I was trying to observe what kind of thoughts were coming to me based on what I was looking at. So if I was able to catch the thoughts, then I was moving one of the rocks to the other side of the table. So that was like counting one. And then I was waiting for like 3 4 seconds. And I was looking again at the video, and I was just looking at the objects in the video and trying to see if I was able to catch what kind of thoughts I was having in that moment. So every time I was catching the thought, even if it's something simple, for example, there is the image of a woman in the video, and I'm just looking at her, and suddenly I see that I started thinking about probably a friend of mine. So then, just by observing that thought, just by doing that, I was just taking one little rock and moving to the other side, and and then I was I switched to another video, a
Yeah.
different one, something that I really really like, something that I will consider entertainment. So I started to watch that, and I started to do the same thing. So I started to pay attention to what I was watching, and I was trying to catch the thoughts that I was having based on what I was looking at. So let's say that there is a car in the video, but and suddenly I look at the car and then I start thinking about my car or the car of my friend. So then by catching that thought, but observing, being aware that I'm having a thought based on what I'm looking at, I was just moving a little rock. So eventually I realized that I
Okay.
was when I was looking at something that it was more entertainment for me, I was less aware of myself. So I was doing this exercise often enough until I started to notice that I was aware of my thoughts internally and out, because once you're aware
Mm-hmm.
of your thoughts, by default you start being aware of your emotions, because the emotions are triggered by the thoughts.
Exactly.
So when you start to be aware of your thoughts and your emotions, of course you're going to be aware of why you're doing certain actions in a specific way. So the point was to
Yeah.
start moving,
Okay.
counting rocks, and see that there is not so much difference between when you're watching something calm and when you're watching something that is for you entertainment. Because it's very easy for us to be observing ourselves when we're in meditation or we are at home and it's quiet, but
Mm-hmm.
but we are not in meditation when we are in our daily life. Many times there are difficult times,
Yeah.
you can be having difficult situations. So in those moments is when you're actually having the real test. So when you can actually be aware of yourself in the moments that are not easy for you. So that's like meditation is like a training for you to be in the difficult moments. And we have one coming here from Jesse. Hello, Jesse.
Very good.
And I think we're out of time. So I think that's pretty much everything for today.
In observe all the time, and that would lead us to be masters of of our observation. Okay, so say that keep looking, and that was actually the homework we the first transmission. So I think that that is the main thing of everything, observing. And so that's excellent. Eduardo, thank you so much for all the information that you share with us. We won't be able to get together until Thursday. Eduardo is going to be traveling, like myself as well. So we hope to see you around December the 4th at the same time. Don't forget to leave the comments, suggestions, so we can choose the next topic for our next transmission. And thank you, Eduardo. Have a great trip and see you very soon.
See you, everyone. Thank you, Adriana. Bye.